I'm going to have one last interview with a theologian on the question of sexuality, and then I'm going to leave the subject alone for a while and just go home to my wife. But we will talk about it some more. I know a lot of you are upset by my point of view, but that's why we're here. We're here to discuss things and disagree and talk about things. It's not going to kill you. I do not understand why this upsets people so much, but we'll find out because we're going to do another interview with another theologian about sexuality. These came together, and I'm glad they did because people have been really interested in this, and we'll follow this through, and then we'll move on to other subjects like, my sexuality. This is a man named Alastair Roberts. He's the co-author of the book Echoes of Exodus, Tracing Themes of Redemption Through Scripture. He wrote it along with Andrew Wilson. Dr. Roberts earned his PhD from Durham University, and he's also one of the participants in the Mere Fidelity podcast. Dr. Roberts is a fellow of Scripture and Theology with the Greystone Theological Institute and writes for the Political Theology Network. That blog, by the way, Mere Fidelity, is really interesting and provocative and intelligently written. One of the reasons we asked Dr. Roberts to come on. Here is my interview with Alastair Roberts. Professor Roberts, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I am, for a conservative, incredibly libertarian about questions of sex. I'm a faithful husband, and I would recommend that lifestyle to anybody. But if you live a different lifestyle, if you're gay, if you're, promiscuous, and as long as you're not hurting anybody or frightening the horses, it's none of my business. Convince me that I'm wrong.
As Christians, I think there are two horizons that really shape our view of sex. There's the horizon of the original creation, and then there's the horizon of the age to come. And in both of those horizons, there is an emphasis upon male and female and the significance of our bodies as being means of engaging with the world in a way that honors God. So within the original creation, the creation of man and woman is a creation for the sake of the wider world. We're not just created for our own pleasure, to enjoy ourselves in relationship with each other, but to serve the wider reality of the creation. So when you think about the relationship between men and women, it's a relationship that is generative for the structures of society, for the structures of the family, for the structures of the generations from one generation to another. And it's something that fills and forms our social life. And so within traditional societies, as they've recognized marriage, it's not merely been about a couple of people who enjoy each other and the celebration of their sexual intimacy. Rather, it's a celebration of a formative relationship for society as a whole, for human life in the creation, and for a means of reflecting God's own creative rule within the world as God forms and fills his creation. And so that emphasis is one that we bear out within the celebration of marriage, not just the celebration of individuals in intimacy, but of a relationship that has a generative character to it. And is also, as a result of that, I think, a particular form of the discipline of hospitality. It's a means by which we take the world into our lives, and also a means by which we go out into the world and bring life out into it. And so the sanctioning of a particular sexual union is about that. It's about not just this private bond that exists in the bedroom, but about something that is formative and generative of life for the world, and also a means by which two people in their love together have a form of relationship that by its very nature is ordered to the inviting and welcoming of others into the world.
I've never heard that argument before. The last part, the hospitality argument, I've never heard that argument before. And the immediate objection that comes up is, are we to be unwelcoming to people who are different, who are gay, who live a different kind of life?
Well, I think the first thing to talk about is what exactly is marriage? And when we're thinking about marriage as this particular form of hospitality, it's one thing to ask the question of whether we should accept same-sex relationships. It's another thing to say whether those should be recognized as marital. And I think that second question is the one that we should focus upon primarily. And I think when we've realized the character of marriage as something that is ordered towards this bearing of life, ordered towards this movement out into the world, this opening up to the other sex, and opening up in some ways to our own sex, because what it means to be male or female is something that's always played out against the horizon of the other sex. And that practice of hospitality is something that is unique to this particular sort of union. It's one of the reasons why marriage has always been surrounded by regulations and norms that prevent you from just choosing it as whatever form you want to have it, because it's the recognition that this is a union that does not exist merely for the sake of the people in it. It exists for the sake of the wider society and for the children that are welcomed into that bond.
The problem that people, the way these arguments frequently tend to go is that one person is arguing, as you're arguing now, from a series of principles and from the idea of the society. And the other person is coming to us and saying, you know, I'm not attracted to women, but I want an intimate life. I want a sexual life. Are you telling me that I have to? I mean, let's face it, the intimate life is one of the great consolations of living. I mean, this is one of the things that gives us joy. And here is this fellow coming to you and saying, well, wherever I am, this is the only way I can have that life. Are you telling me that that has to be absent from my existence?
Well, one of the difficulties I think we have within the modern world when talking about a Christian view of marriage is that the modern world is ordered around the pursuit of pleasure and the pursuit of happiness and individual fulfillment. The Christian practice of marriage has never been primarily about that.
Okay.
The Christian practice of marriage has been about a discipline that we find great fulfillment in, but it is something that involves at its very heart sacrifice, a laying down of your life for the sake of someone else, and for a placing of your individual ends, the ends with which you enter into the union of marriage, perhaps for your own pleasure, a laying down of those for the sake of something greater, the union that can be formed through the mutual sacrifices on behalf of others. And that is something that is not just a matter of individual fulfillment. Now, when we have a culture that's built around individual fulfillment, the question that you raise is the one that will be prominent within our minds. If we think that what it means to be married is merely about my individual satisfaction, having a successful sex life, or whatever we might want to talk about as, then the reasons why we would distinguish between a same-sex couple and a male and female couple are not going to be obvious to people, because sex becomes a means of self-fulfillment. It's about my identity, it's about my self-realization, rather than about a means by which an individual can enter into a relationship that propels them into something beyond themselves, into the creation of a reality that is hospitable to children as they're born into the world, and also that opens them up to the horizon of the other sex. Now, the reason we celebrate marriage so much as our society, or traditional society, is because we recognize the importance of that particular thing. That it's more than about individual fellowship. It's about our responsibilities and the claims that other people have upon us. Now, within a society of individuality, that's difficult for us to understand, because we all think of ourselves as individuals trying to self-fulfill, but marriage is about one flesh union. It's about moving out beyond ourselves, transcending ourselves in a relationship where others make claims upon us. And that's difficult. We're bound up with other people in their lives, and we don't get to choose the terms on which this plays out. We don't have a bespoke practice of marriage. Everyone has to practice this particular form of marriage, which is designed to be hospitable to the various parties in it, not just to serve my individual self-fulfillment. And so that question that you raise is an important one for our society, but it's also important to understand why that would not be raised in the same way in past societies.
Now, you've talked about the attempt to abolish the difference between the sexes, the abolition of male and female. And I don't think anyone can question that there is a segment of our society that's working very hard on this, that wants us to think that there's either that there's no difference between men and women, or that you can transcend your physical presence in some weird way. Two ideas which are mutually contradictory. If there's no difference between men and women, I've never understood how if you were a man in a woman's body, how you would even know, how it would even occur to you. But what interests me is, why do you think this is going on? Why do people want to abolish what, for me, is one of the chief goods and joys and graces of human life? Where does that instinct come from to erase this?
think there are a number of causes. We live in a very unusual society, in that the natural sort of interaction between men and women has been changed considerably by modern life. Whereas the family used to be a center, and the home and the household used to be a center of gravity of human existence for millennia, it's no longer that anymore. Many of the functions of the family have been outsourced to other things, whether that's household appliances, education systems, the government in certain forms of provision, and even work. The family used to be the site where you'd used to do most of your labor, whereas now you do that in your business or some other place of work. And so as a result, the family becomes very much a sort of sentimental reservation where you go and you enjoy your domesticity, your life together, and the sentimental attachments that you have. And when it lacks that significance, I can understand why there's a threat, particularly for women who feel that they're going to be trapped within that realm. And so the realm of self-fulfillment, the realm of individual meaning, is a realm of, well, it has become a realm of individuality, not a realm of common labor towards a shared reality that we're forming around ourselves, a male and a female in relationship forming a home and a world that is their own. Now it increasingly becomes a matter of going out to a job, earning money, and then bringing that back into the home as a site primarily of consumption. And so I think that has shaped things considerably. Further factors, things like contraception and the pill, it means that there is no longer a sense in which the relationship between men and women is naturally, sexual relationship is naturally ordered towards procreation. And so increasingly, it does not have the weight that it has on that account. That weight is resisted. So whereas in the past you talk about responsible sex being marital sex, sex that provides for the potential consequences of a relationship, now safe sex is sex that is contraceptive sex, sex that avoids any possibility of conception. And so as a result of these, I think we have a situation where the dignity and the honor of men and women is increasingly seen as individuals within a society that is detached from their relationships, that's a realm of career, that sort of thing. And so the need to cut yourself off from the distinctions that male and female naturally create in what it means to be human, I think that's one that's pressing for us. I've compared this to the situation where human beings as astronauts are shot into space and they experience 7 dawns in a single day, and it sets their sleep pattern awry. We're not intended to live like that. The circadian rhythm is related to the Earth's pattern of day and night. Then you have things like the disorientation of not knowing which way is up and which way is down. And then also things like your muscles deteriorating because you do not have the Earth's gravity to act under. And as a result of all of this, as we have been propelled into this sort of zero gravity or microgravity realm of modern society, to find dignity, often we feel the need to resist the residual gravity of what it means to be male and female that pulls upon us and prevents us from achieving that equal outcomes within the realm of just autonomous power.
Let me ask you this, because it seems to me that this can only go further, whether you want to say it's worse or better. There will come a time, I assume, when you can change a man into a woman. Now that technology is so bad that you can protest that it's damaging to people, but I'm sure there'll come a time when they can do that, when children can be had outside when wombs will be separate from human beings. Is there a danger that arguments like this, arguments that attach values to matter, to material, is there a danger that at some point we begin to seem like the Amish, we begin to seem like we're just refusing the blessings of technology? Or is there an argument for remaining human, even in the face of technology that lifts us above humanity?
Yes, it's an important question. I think it's one that a number of Christian thinkers have wrestled with. One very helpful book on the subject is The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. Another one, Begotten or Made by Oliver O'Donovan. And both of these are exploring certain aspects of what it means to be human in the face of technological and scientific advances. So, for instance, Lewis's recognition that nature is what we ascribe to nature what we have technical control over. And the more that we gain technical control over our nature, the more we kind of carve off elements of ourselves and assign them to this dead objective order. Whereas in the past, we'd see them very much as things to be cultivated through the development of character. Now we increasingly become victims of our instinctive whims because we've not cultivated a nature. We're just gaining technical control over the world in which we live and increasingly over our being. Now, I think in many of the debates that we're having at the moment about things like same-sex marriage, transgender issues, there is an incipient transhumanism at work, the belief that we can transcend humanity in various forms. And so, whereas you have the social change of something like same-sex marriage, there is behind that social change a series of technical changes that are on the horizon. So the ability to have gametes from skin cells, we'll be able to have a child formed of two fathers, for instance, an egg formed from a male skin cell. Then we'll be able to form children in an artificial womb, gestate in that sort of environment. We'll be able to have genetic screening of an embryo and then decide whether to discard it or to pursue its all the way towards pregnancy, all the way full course of pregnancy. These are the sorts of things that are on the horizon that implicitly we have accepted as a result of that logic. And so I think as Christians, one of the things that Oliver O'Donovan emphasizes is that as Christians, the dignity of the human being that we uphold is bound up with the fact that we are begotten, not just made. We're not a project that has been formed through technical activity, but we believe that human beings have their dignity in part because they are begotten not through it's not as if parents get together and they engage in a scientific project to form their children. Rather, their children are formed out of a personal love that they share. And it's out of the love that they share that child organically arises, is conceived out of as a result of something that's prior to any political arrangement, prior to any legal organization, prior to any technical intervention, prior to any medical procedure. That reality of the bond of male and female bodies is something that gives dignity to us. It means that my identity, for instance, is my origins are found not in some choice on behalf of my parents, but in a love that they shared, the bond that they shared between them. And so that movement, I think, is one in which we can become untethered from our basic humanity if we end up pursuing it too far. Human beings become their own creations.
I have to stop you there. I'm out of time, but I really appreciate a fascinating conversation. I hope you'll come back and we can continue it some more. Really interesting, very thoughtful guy, and I am going to read that book. I'm going to put it in my list.